Now, I think this person needs no introduction because they're an award-winning actor, having won Best Villain in the Vertical Drama Love Fan Awards 2024 for their role as M in Crush on the Unwanted Princess. But apparently some of you might not know. So just in case you've been living under a rock and you don't know who this is, I'm going to ask Nick to introduce himself to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Ritacco. I am an actor here in Los Angeles. I've been working in the vertical industry now I'm almost at my 2-year anniversary, actually. And I also happen to be an avid baseball fan, which I always need to put out there just to make sure everybody knows. And turns out that the new Pope and I share the same favorite baseball team, in case anybody was wondering.
Oh, does this mean now that baseball team is going to win everything?
Well, at least God is on our side. I'm not sure if that means that we're we're going to do very well, but hey, listen, we'll take
Who is your
all the
favourite
help we
baseball team? I mean, it won't mean anything to me because I'm English, but
can.
who is your
The Chicago White Sox, the classically the lesser of the two Chicago baseball teams. Yes.
Okay. So I have to ask actually then, how come you went for them? Is that a family pull?
So my mom remarried when I was 8 years old. My brain was still very malleable, and my stepfather, who is to this day the greatest thing that ever happened to me, may or may not have brainwashed me into being a
Good
Chicago
man.
White Sox fan. Yeah, and a lifetime of suffering. But hey, I'm happy. So.
I always think that's the thing, isn't it? If you find a child, it's like, if I do one duty in the world, I will create a White Sox fan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just wait for my kids. Yeah, oh gosh, do I want them to be exposed to this suffering or not? But you know.
So I'm going to ask some questions just about going back to childhood. Do you remember like the first job you wanted to do as a kid? Of like, I want to be that when I grow up.
Setting aside sports because I was a big sports kid. I wanted to be a baseball player. I was like, this will be the best. I also remember I really enjoyed like communications and leadership. So I kind of like was leaning more towards I'm like, maybe like a career in like international relations or communications sort of thing. I was very much drawn to that. Drawn to exploring the world, different countries, different cultures, and so for a while I was like, that might be a good thing to pursue, just because I was fascinated by it. My favorite show growing up was The West Wing, and I was like, this would be so cool to work in. Yeah, I'm a
Walk
West
and
Wing
talk.
kid.
Yeah.
And but then acting sort of when I was in high school, acting sort of stole my heart and hasn't given it back yet.
I
So,
have to ask, who is your favourite character in The West Wing?
probably Leo McGarry. Maybe when I was younger, it was Josh Lyman, but I think Leo uh, is now as an adult, having watched that show, I'm like, I identify with Leo quite a bit. Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
So, tying in with that, what was your favourite subject at school then?
History. I was a big history kid. And this is also my mom. Like I was saying, my mom remarried. My
Mm.
stepfather was much older. He's a depression baby. And so he was a huge history buff as well. And so I found myself, like learning about things that I probably necessarily wouldn't have been quite exposed to at that age, but I just was fascinated by history. And I think that's sort of tied into as well the sort of initial interests in international relations and communications and whatnot. But yeah, I'm a huge history buff, and in college, I all of my humanities courses I filled up with history and politics just to complete my degree. But I was fascinated by it. I loved
So the obvious question off that in is like, how did acting win your heart out? Because obviously you've got this massive interest in something very different. So
it.
how did acting win?
I think I again coming from the athletic background, my sort of story with falling in love with acting is very specific. I was playing sports in high school, and I injured myself. Just to try to truncate the story, I injured myself. My mother was essentially like, "Hey, you can't come home at 2:30 every day after school. You got to figure out something to do before baseball season starts." And I was like, "Okay, I'll figure something out." I auditioned for the spring musical, and I got a role as a freshman, as a 14-year-old. And I was so excited. This was great. I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, so getting to do the musical when all the girls from the sister school came to like do the show, I thought was really cool. I was really
Yeah,
excited
get
about
that.
that. And I was having a blast. I was going from rehearsal to baseball practice and back and forth, and sort of just balancing everything and going to school, and I loved it. Um, and then one day we did shows for, for people to come see, but then we also would do shows for students. And one day we had shows lined up for juniors and seniors. Juniors in the morning, seniors in the afternoon. And the guy playing Joseph in Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat did not show up. And I have an auditory memory, and so I was like, hey, basically the director was like, hey, we can either cancel the show or somebody can step in and try to play the role. And I said, I know all the words. I can do this. If you'd like me to. And immediately was like, what am I doing? But they quickly auditioned a couple of us. They picked me, and I learned the blocking in 20 minutes and went on as Joseph for 2 shows that day. And I've told this story a bunch, and I try to really stress this part of it. I was not good.
Okay.
I was really a complete mess. I sang most of the right words, didn't know where to go, didn't know what, basically was being pulled around the stage by a lot of people who were in the show. But the show was incredible. The energy, everybody took care of me. And the show was 10 times better because everybody's like energy and focus and like what it really means to be a storyteller, especially in theater and in film as well. But you have this big group of people on this mission to tell the story, and everybody just came to life in a way that they hadn't before. So even whilst I was a complete mess, the show just was electric, and I fell in love with that feeling. It reminded me of sports in a lot of ways. Team sports. I was always a team sports guy, but that sort of captured my heart. Was this everybody on a mission to tell this story? Everybody playing their part, but more so than just like hitting their mark and saying their lines, but taking care of each other. And I was locked in. And then I found like, oh, I'm interested in historical plays. I'm interested. Shakespeare became a huge love of mine as well throughout my studies, and so I found I was able to sort of blend my history buffness with
Yeah.
acting as well. I like a lot of old plays, so.
So I have to ask, what's your favourite Joseph song?
Oh, probably probably close every door. That's a bit of a cop out though, because it's just like this wonderful, like really soaring solo. Um, but if I had to pick another one, it would be Those Canaan Days, the sort of French ballad sung by the brother Simeon. That one I always thought was hilarious and fun. So
That's good. That is a good answer. Close every door to me because that is probably the one. If people know one, they'll know that one. So
they'll know it. Yeah,
know
they'll
that
definitely
one.
know
They'll be able to start humming along.
that. Hmm.
Okay, so what was your first paid job, and was it an acting job? And what was your first? If it wasn't, what was your first paid acting job?
My first paid job. I was a camp counselor at a camp in Chicago, summer between my senior year of high school and my freshman year at NYU. That was my first paid job, which was a lot of fun. Found out I liked, working with kids. Summer camp, it was fun, and I got to, basically run around in the summer a lot. It was good. But my first paid acting job was I was still in school, um, but it was near the end of my. I mean, it was a senior spring semester. We were about to graduate, and I booked a show that was an off-Broadway show. I had a very small role. It was called The Notebook of Trigorin, which is Tennessee Williams' adaptation of The Seagull. And I got to do that at the Flea Theater in New York, and with a bunch of actors that I love and had worked with before, and a director I'd worked with before, great theater company. And yeah, that was my first acting gig. I made $100 stipend for the entire like 3 week run of the show. And at wrap night, I walked to the bar and put the $100 bill on the bar and said, "Here you go, everybody. Next round's on me." So yeah, that's what I did with my first acting paycheck, if you
I
will.
love that, but that's like why you fell in love with acting, isn't it? It was the people and the team around you, so it was natural that you
Yes,
wanted to give back.
without a doubt. I'm a huge like yeah, people the people involved in the mission. Like that's what I've fallen in love with. So
So once you're paid acting, Where did you find that kind of the jobs were coming? Were you mainly theatre, stage? Obviously, if people look on your IMDb, they'll see some well-known TV credits. Kind of how did it all work? And I guess how did you work your way to LA?
So when I was when I graduated school, theater was the goal. I wanted to be a Broadway actor, and I sang as well. After I finished that show, and then eventually graduated. And my first gig out of school was a new musical, brand new musical, full on like in development, turned into full run of a show. It was called Deployed. It was about this young couple. The guys recruited and uh, shipped off to Iraq. It's about their struggles with their relationship, of him being there, his wife being at home, communication, she's pregnant, like sort of exploring that whole story and vibe and atmosphere that was kind of going on back in like the 2010s here in the US. It was a very prominent storyline back then. I loved working on that show and was like, oh, all right, like this is great. Like this, these kinds of things keep coming. However, the show never truly, I did many renditions of it. The show never truly got like picked up. We did lots of backers auditions trying to get people to invest in it and whatnot. But while that was going on, I was just auditioning for theater in New York, and ended up sort of starting a fledgling Shakespearean theater company while I was there as well. And we essentially did two shows every year. That was sort of that was sort of all we could muster. We did a show in the spring and a show in the fall, but I had a lot of opportunities to play wonderful roles. And we also would do this bar series. We'd rent out a bar in Queens, and we'd do readings of plays, sort of pseudo staged readings of Shakespearean plays. And so I loved it. I was truly living like the bohemian life in New York. I was doing very low paid theater gigs and meeting a lot of people, making friends, some of my best friends to this day. I was a starving artist. I was a personal trainer by daylight and an actor by night, and then eventually landed an agent, and I got lucky, and I booked a recurring co-starring role on the only season of the TV show Homeland that's shot in New York. I'm not sure that, the show's, long been finished, but that was sort of my launching point into film and TV. And I got a couple of episodes on that season there. And then almost immediately after that, booked a co-star role on Law and Order SVU. And was like, oh, cool, this film and TV thing's pretty sweet. let's continue to pursue this. And I tried to, at that point in time, this was like 2018, 2019. New York still didn't have a huge like influx of opportunities. Most of the time they'd audition you in New York, would fly you to Los Angeles if they wanted to shoot something. So I was like, what, maybe I just need to take a risk and get on a plane and go to Los Angeles and try it out there. And so January of 2020, I flew to LA, completely moved my life here, got Cora out here, my tabby cat, and within 2 months the world shut down. And so here I was, didn't know a lot of people, and was living with two roommates who, one of them is still my really good friend, but two people I didn't really know, in Santa Monica in a 3-bedroom apartment, and just trying to figure my life out. And I stuck it out, and eventually, the work started to come. But there was a couple of dark years there. 2020, 21, and 22 were really slow for me.
That's just terrible timing, isn't it? Of just
either terrible timing or great timing. It's a, you know what I mean? I if I'd stayed in New York, if I'd planned to move in June of 2020, I never would have left. I'd have been stuck in New York. I was living with my best friends at the time. I probably would have just like been in that isolated situation and tried to figure out what was next. But because I got out here in 2020, right before the pandemic, I was here already, and I was like, you know what, I'm here. I'm going to stick this out and figure this out. And I'm glad I did, because so many gifts came after that, even though I couldn't quite predict what they were going to be.
So I have to just go back to Shakespeare, because obviously you said that you were doing plays. I just want to know, what's your favourite Shakespeare comedy or comedy role, and what's your favourite Shakespeare tragedy role?
My favorite comedy is As You Like It. Rosalind is my favorite character in all of Shakespeare, and I've had the opportunity to play Orlando twice. So I love that play. I think it a lot of the time is treated a little fluffily, if that makes sense. It's very much
Yeah, no, it
treated as
does.
a pastoral comedy,
Mm.
and I think there is incredible depth in that play if you really give it the chance. And I love their relationship. Their love is like, yeah, and she's incredible. I revere Rosalind. Favorite tragedy. This is a tough one. Hmm. I I'm gonna go with Antony and Cleopatra.
Oh,
I mean, I guess
slightly out there choice. I like it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many obvious choices of wonderful tragedies, but I'm just thinking of like relationships that I
Mm.
sort of revere, and I love. They may be the only two people in that play that have any fun, but they have a lot of fun. Those two characters. So I'll go with Antony and Cleopatra. And I've never gotten to perform that play like full on production. I've just done
Mm.
done readings of it, and I get sort of thrown into the Mark Antony bucket quite a bit just because of how I look and sort of historically how they picture him. And
Mm.
I would love to put that play on eventually.
Okay, need to put that on the list. Goals
Yeah,
for
yeah,
May
put it
Live.
on the list.
So, coming to LA, and obviously you mentioned quiet years. We probably need to get to verticals because obviously we are supposed to be talking about
Yes,
verticals on here.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Um, so when did you? What was your awareness? Your first one was is it Billionaire CEO Session? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah,
And
billionaire
that's
CEO's obsession.
old school. So that's, I mean, this is ridiculous, isn't it? Old school. It's only 2023, but it
I know,
feels,
but
given how
it
fast the
feels.
industry's
Yeah.
grown. And then also, if you look at the cast as well, it's a bit of a who's who because so many of the background, more supporting characters like yourself go on to, be leading stars.
Yeah.
You've got Kelsey
A bunch.
Masterson, haven't
Most of that
you? And
cast.
yeah, I mean, it's just phenomenal. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what was the process of getting that, and kind of what were you told? I guess did you even know what it was? How did everyone find it?
I was 2023 things started to pick up for me, and so I noticed I was getting a lot more opportunities, and my manager sent me a breakdown for Billionaire CEO. It was just called BCO. I didn't know what it stood for
Mm.
at the time. And back then, the auditioning process for verticals was much more in depth and longer. Again, I think they were trying to figure out exactly who they wanted to use and what they wanted people to look like, and pairing in their mind like what they sort of their image of the show. And so it took much longer. I think I submitted a self tape. I got a call back to submit another tape with direction, and then I got a Zoom callback where I read with the director, and then in-person callbacks. So it was
Wow.
4 rounds of auditions, and at those in-person callbacks, there were maybe 8 of us,
Mm.
um, and spent the whole day there basically reading with different partners and different actors, and I've eventually got the call that I got the role that I'd been up for. I think they very much had like pigeonholed me into Henry. They weren't. I think Griffin was there. They were considering him for both roles, and there's another couple of actors there who do work in the vertical space that
Mm.
they were looking at for both roles. But yeah, and I got the role of Henry, and was like, what the heck is this? Because I'd only seen my situation, the scene that they'd sent me.
Mm.
Then I got the whole script. It's like 120 some odd page. I probably still have it on my computer. It's a really long script. That was a huge shoot. I think that was a 12-day shoot, which is unheard of now.
Yeah.
But it just ended up being a lot of fun, and sort of that snowballed me into 3 more productions that year with the same company, the same
Mm.
production company. Um, and I think I've worked with them 4 times now. But yeah, that's sort of how it all began. And yeah, that's where like Kira was playing my younger sister in that, and Alexa was in it, and Casey and Griffin and Kelsey was also a supporting role in it. And you're like, wow, all these people that ended up sort of forging their own pathway in the vertical space. It's cool.
And obviously, it's quite interesting that you're known for different roles now, but your first role was basically as an office manager.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, as a CEO, and it's interesting because normally the supporting male role, the true male villain shall we say, is not like I was kind of just a nice guy who was pining over somebody that worked for him. You know, I wasn't this evil coded mustache twirly ulterior motive sort of villain. And then things got a little bit more black and white, I think, as they continued to make these. But yeah, I was an office manager.
So yeah, I just think that's fascinating when you go back to, you're like, oh, he's really nice. He's not doing
Yeah,
anything evil in this one, which is lovely.
yeah, no, exactly.
No kidnapping. Well done.
No kidnapping. No, just trying to, for the most part, trying to do the right thing. So,
So after that, obviously, I'm just going to jump around a bit because you've done lots of different roles.
yeah,
You're kind of known, I think you're on speed dial for if they want someone to play a mafia boss.
correct. Yeah, yeah. I've gotten a lot of those. Yeah,
But you've also played vampire.
I have. Yeah,
And actually, you've done a lot of werewolves, haven't you? You've done a lot of
I
a
think
little
there
bit
was
under the radar, but when you actually count
a
through,
run of werewolf characters there. I haven't gotten to be in the werewolf genre so much recently.
Mm.
It's more so been a lot of the mafia genre. But yeah, for a while there, I think I probably have done close to 10 werewolf productions. And I think they kind of like, depending on how they sort of are styling the production, who they want as the good guy, bad guy. I play a lot of werewolf villains, which to me in a couple of productions was fun, but most of the time it gets to be that role gets to be really frustrating because you almost are always single-mindedly trying to kidnap the Our Lady lead, and you just keep trying. You just keep doing it over and over again, even when it doesn't work. I think the most recent werewolf one that I did was with Mariah and Eric. Um, and I swear I did the same thing like 8 times. I'd run in, I'd capture Mariah, Eric would run in and punch me in the face. And it happened maybe like 5 times. Maybe 5 times. And it's a hoot, but like I try to commit to it and just let it rip, and for a while there, they kept me in that niche. Yeah.
So with the werewolf ones, obviously there's this whole language and because when I first started watching, I was like, I don't understand. I don't understand what fated mate and
The
lunar and
subculture.
goddess is. And then luckily some fan was like, I shall explain it all to you.
Yeah.
Do you get like a primer as actors? Like, who's the person who knows this, who then explains it to everyone?
No, we don't get the primer at all. I mean, we know we sort of know the power hierarchy, right, of alpha, beta, omega,
Mm.
etc., and sort of how that goes.
Mm.
But in terms of like the niche itself of the genre, and I find for the storytelling, the less we're focused on that, the better. The more we're
Mm.
just focused on who we're talking to, what's going on in this situation, what are we trying to do? Because the niche can probably get in your way a little bit as an actor if
Yeah.
you're just like, oh wait, but the genre they specific, like what if I'm supposed to specifically do? Because then you're sort of like in your head about it, and I find it's like I'm talking to either the love of my life or the person that I want to kidnap or whatever,
Yeah.
and focus on that and just dive into that. I didn't get much of a primer, although I'm sure there's some actors out there who are quite familiar with it.
Okay. So I have to ask then about the Mafia. What was the first role that you got playing a Mafia person?
The first Mafia role, I'd have to go back and double check the very first one. Going through my titles because I might miss one. The first one that I remember like truly getting Mafia boss was last October. Was the Mafia boss's secret maid? I think is what it's called.
Mm.
That may not be my very first one. I've got to probably go back and double check.
Mm.
But it was around like last fall. I got this run of Mafia boss opportunities. And I found that I really vibed with it. Like I got to be, I got to be this guy that was sort of had his family on his shoulders and was trying to take care of the love of his life and trying to take care of his family. And like I found I really vibed with, oh, I'm in this set of circumstances and I've got to protect everybody and I've got to take care of everybody and I've got to like make all of this work, which Nick really just kind of was able to lock into.
So that's interesting. So actually what appealed to it is more that level of responsibility that character has, and the pressures.
Correct.
And
Yeah. I find
interesting.
like in my life that's sort of where I tend to lean. I like to be somebody that is of service in a lot of
Mm,
ways, and um yeah, we don't get this opportunity so much in the vertical space just because of how specific it is. And a lot
mm,
of the times you have to be, depending if you're CEO or werewolf or whatnot. Sometimes things can be cruel. Sometimes things can be sort of like black and white coded a little
mm.
bit. But with the mafia roles, I find at the end of the day, you almost are always trying to protect everybody, keep everybody safe. And I was like, that I can really get behind. I don't have to judge it. I can just
Mm.
fly into it and sort of like let it rip.
Because it comes back
And
to family, essentially, isn't it? It's whether it's the
essentially,
Hound
yeah,
or Maid family, they're trying to protect the family. So, yeah.
exactly, yeah. Which is, I mean, I was an only child, but and parents both divorced, remarried. I have quite a big family. My stepfather had a huge family. I moved away from home at 18, and I um, developed a huge sort of family of chosen family,
Mm.
people that I'm still very close with, and that's yeah. Those people are all very important to me, and I find that that's an easy um, sort of goal to get behind, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. I was going to ask, because obviously you are known for playing quite a lot of Mafia. Do you have, in the obviously the canon of Mafia cinema and TV, do you have favourites? What are they?
My absolute favorite uh, is Peaky Blinders. Cillian Murphy's character in Peaky Blinders. Cillian Murphy's also probably my favorite actor. I just think he's incredible. But Tommy Shelby, yeah, and it's the same thing. I feel like I play Tommy Shelby every single time that obviously the very different stories but like very basically, what's he trying to do? He's trying to take care of everybody, get the family, a step up, a leg up, keep everybody moving upwards and protect everyone. And that's the goal, right? That's the mafia man's goal. So I love that show, and I think we talked about this that I have once. I don't want to spoil anything. Spoilers for Peaky Blinders. But I have not finished it because once a very prominent character is gone, I was a little too devastated to keep
No,
going.
we were both. We've
Yeah,
agreed.
we're both. But yeah,
I have
love
to
that show.
ask actually, because Peaky Blinders is iconic. So if people don't know, it's sort of set in sort of post First World War Birmingham and kind of follows the
Birmingham.
Shelby family in the UK,
Mm.
and it sort of follows them over sort of 20 years, and they're basically gangsters. But it kind of really lays the foundation of why they're doing that, because it's all like they've come back from World War One and are traumatized and blah blah blah. But how well known is it in America? Like, is it?
I think
So
very
it's
well
common
known.
knowledge. Yeah.
And I would say that it sort of, for lack of a better term, peaked and then was sort of off the radar because the first season was out 10 years ago, maybe more.
Mm.
And it was very popular for a while. I remember people, wanting to dress like them and that sort of being like a cool vibe. But I know that there's going to be a film coming out
Mm.
that sort of continues and possibly ends the story. And I bet we'll see sort of a resurgence in that popularity. But yeah, Cillian Murphy just knocks it out of the park. So I feel like a lot of actors have sort of dove into that show and watched him rock it. So
But I also think as well, it's quite interesting because I was rewatching bits of it, and I think Arthur Shelby as well. Actually, there's kind of, I feel he's quite like a vert villain in a way, because Cillian
but
Murphy's like the central character who's trying to pull it all together,
correct.
and Arthur's like the unhinged one on the side who's normally off on his head on cocaine and is the one who kind of comes in and causes chaos. And I
Yeah.
do see there's like a parallel with a vert villain.
100%. The only thing that's complicated is that he's like the one person that Tommy loves more than you know what I mean? Like loves more than
Yeah.
anybody. So you have this, it's a little more, it's so much more juicily complicated because you're like, this is probably one of the main things in my way of getting done what I need to get done. And he's my brother, so I can't just remove him the way that I would attempt to remove a vert villain. But no, I love it. But yeah, the unhinged Arthur Shelby character is probably the inspiration for a lot of mafia villains, I'd say.
So I have to ask, okay, in a face-off, okay, werewolves versus mafia, who wins?
All the Mafia, probably. Silver bullets.
Okay.
Yeah, silver bullets would take care of them pretty quickly. The werewolves need to
Yeah.
get up close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I just like I have to ask this as like someone who's played both sides, who's going to win in that battle. Okay, so some of the other roles you've played. I want to talk about your award-winning role
Yeah.
as M because in Crush on the Unwanted Princess, not Mafia,
No.
just not a good guy.
Not a
But
good.
it's quite an
Yeah.
interesting role because it does start off as it's not clear cut. You're not quite
It's
sure which way it will
it
go. And then
feels
obviously as it
very.
goes through it, I would say actually it's probably one of the most evil characters
Yeah.
you've played because I don't think it's spoiling anything to say you murder a significant character. And
Yeah.
it is quite shocking because in Verts we're used to it being like, oh, whatever. And then you're like, oh, right, okay. And then there's this brilliant thing where your character is then interacting with Mariah Moss's character B, and they're both kind of trying to get the upper hand.
Mm.
When you looked at that script and played that role, did you have a sense of there's more here and this one might do really well? Like, can you tell when you get these scripts?
So from the uh just from the audition situation that I got, which I remember reading for that role on set for something else.
Mm.
But just from that, understanding that that I was supposed to play the villain in it, and getting to have the conversation that they sent me for the audition was our first time meeting in the woods together. And I've been watching you for a while. I need you to do this, and this, and we're gonna do this, and make sort of laying the plan and the mission that I need to send her on. I was like, whoa, this is very different than any sort of pigeonholed black and white villain situation that I've ever seen. So immediately I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. Knowing that I'm playing the bad guy, but it's kind of juicily complicated and a little bit more grounded and it's very clear what I want, and it's not crazy. And so I was immediately drawn into it. Got the full script. It still had a lot of the vertical tropes in it, but I was so excited about it. I got to really. It was very much a Bond villain in a sense,
Yeah, good
right?
comparison. Yeah.
Because the Bond villain sort of always starts out as this guy that you meet at the party, or like that is around, and like he is the big threat, but not until the very end do the twists and turns lead you to this place where, like, all right, now guns are pointed at everybody and it's like this is the standoff. And that's sort of what I got to be. I loved that story. I loved working with them. And yeah, that was just a really fulfilling villain role to play compared to the normal ones that you get. There's a lot to dive into, to sink my teeth into.
Because I do think it's interesting that the things that fans were nominating and coming up for the awards were the scripts where there's a bit more nuance.
Yeah.
Like
And
this.
then
You
you
look at
find
everything that
that,
was nominated, it's like, yeah, this is interesting. These are new nuance roles that are
yeah.
coming up. It's not just the obvious villain. It's ones where everyone's had a bit more, to play with.
And I think that's important because I think when you're looking at what they're trying to do with verticals, they're trying to capture audiences in that 2-minute snippet, right, and keep them swiping and keep them swiping. But at the end of the day, if it's not the big, loud, flashy things that necessarily keep people, maybe that gets them in. But maybe maybe the audience that is really absorbing this, they want to see eventually that nuance and that groundedness in the vertical space. So I hope that we continue to sort of blend things that way. Because if you're just going to watch over and over again, sort of the same situations happen on repeat, just in different rooms in a mansion, if that's not what people want, great. Because I think as actors too, we understand that it's like this is a mobile format and it's on the internet, and you need to catch people's eyes because there's a lot of content out there, and you need to keep them coming back at first. But then if the story finds this grounded path, like why not? Because that's so much more fun for everybody. It gets a little bit more real and gritty and leaves things complicated and has you asking more questions than just being told the answers to everything. So,
because I think two of my other favourite roles of you would probably fall in that as well, and that there's a bit more to them. So I really like. I'm sorry, I've got the phone. IMDb is my friend. Mr. Right and Miss Wrong.
Yeah.
That's the one where you're with Monroe Klein, who is a goddess.
Mhm.
Um, but obviously your character starts off blind.
Yeah.
But there's a situation where you've got a younger brother
Mhm.
and the father. But what I love about it is often there's like all the vertical siblings, there's always some terrible parenting and they're being set up
Mhm.
against each other. But it's never really questioned. What I love in this one is that your character and the brother character both actually turn on the dad and are like, why on earth have you done that to us? And that's so satisfying to watch. It's
Mhm.
so good. Apart from the fact that obviously, the love story is great as well.
Yeah.
How was that playing blind? Yeah, can you just like share any thoughts you have on that
This
production?
is one of the this is probably the production other than the ones that I've done with Brooke, and I think it's because everybody knows Brooke and I, and they love reaching out about the productions we've done together. But this is the one that I've had the most people reach out to me about. And it starts with the fact that I am blind. And I felt like I was sort of dealt an interesting hand here because this was a role that was a straight offer. I didn't have to read for it. They wanted me for it right away, brought
Mm,
me in, and were like, let's go. This needs to be you. And I was like, great, okay. Like, I need to, sort of understand what's going on here. And I'm blind. For most of the series, I'm blind. And so I had not reservations, but immediately I was like, okay, hold on. Like I need to understand the context here because like if I'm going to play somebody that is truly blind, has been blind their whole life, I want to do this properly. However, in the context of the story, I've only been blind for maybe a year. I'm a full blown adult, and so I got this sort of uh, I got this opportunity to tell this story about somebody that didn't grow up blind, doesn't have all the tools, doesn't know how to do it well, doesn't know
mm,
how to be blind.
yeah.
And so I sort of just swung as hard as I could at that opportunity and was like, great, here I am. I've been able to see my whole life. Now I'm blind. This is going to be a mess. I'm going to bump into things I'm not going to quite know. And I know they took a little bit of, it's still vertical. They keep it streamlined.
Mm,
But they did keep in a lot of the stuff that I was sort of like exploring with being blind and navigating, seeing with your ears and trying to sort of navigate my way through this world that I otherwise had been able to do just fine. And so many people reached out and they felt very seen and felt like I had done an admirable job at sort of portraying that, which really hit home in my heart. I think that's when I first started to realize how powerful our work could be in this space because I don't. It's not up to us to decide that. It really is up to the people who consume this and want to watch this. So that was really rewarding for me to sort of hear what people had to say about and how seen they felt and mothers reaching out was like my son is blind or partially blind or hard of seeing and they felt like I had done justice to people in that situation and so yeah that was very rewarding for me and then to continue talking about yeah the sort of comeuppance with the family drama um, there were several scenes in that show that I don't think make it into the other vertical space shows, in that the relationship between the three of us is very complicated, and we have the sort of like the throwdown between my dad and my brother and I get knocked into the table again, and I go blind and um, come back and talk to my brother turns himself in and sort of like tries to like redeem himself very rare because he's the male villain, right? And he tries to redeem himself and I'm like, okay, this is different. And then I have the one scene where I learned that that's happening. um the guy who's playing my father, I'm going to blank on his name right now, but he's a really great actor. And we have this one very small scene where I come in and see him, and he's got his golf clubs, and he's like, "I'm retiring. I'm out of here. The business is in your hands now." And we just we really sort of sunk our teeth into that and made a thing out of that. Lots of unspoken stuff going on there. And I all of a sudden was like, wow, this is really juicy and fun, and we don't always get the opportunity to tell that story. So I'm glad that we got the opportunity there.
So interesting that, yeah, that's the one that resonates, where there's a bit more to the story. I
Yeah,
think this might be a
there's
recurring
so much
theme.
going on.
So another one I want to talk about is LAPD, Open Your Heart,
Yeah, yeah, that was
because
fun.
you're on the other side of the law in this one. You got to play a
Yeah,
copper.
yeah.
But you do a very good jealous, can I just say?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's sort of fun because I think Nick in real life is very much, I don't know, more stoic in those situations, and I think I'm constantly told like, hey, like come on, like bring it out a little bit more here. And I was working with a director who I love. Her name is Ira, and I've worked with her a couple times in the vertical space, and yeah, she pulls that out of me really well, I think.
It's a really, really good scene because your character has taken a shine to your character's Darren. I'm just looking up on IMDb. It's
Hmm.
taken a shine to Nora, which is Ashley Michelle Grant, but there's another gentleman, Jordan Wolfe, which is a good choice on the
Yeah.
scene. And it's just you have these brilliant moments of just your character in a car, just slowly getting crosser and crosser because you
Yeah.
think something's going on. And I think some flowers at some point get thrown somewhere. It's quite common in verticals. A really nice bunch of roses gets trashed.
Just
So.
gets chucked, yeah. Then you got to reset, redo them again, and throw them again. Yeah, yeah. It's great.
So yeah, but just to say that one was really good, and also I think a lot of people like that because obviously the female character Nora doesn't need saving all the time.
No, even though
It's
I
quite
think
nice.
she does, right? I think I need to take care of her and all that. At the end of the day, she's a really strong female character, and she doesn't need me so much. She saves me, and I love that about that story. Um, it's and we don't always get those opportunities in the vertical space. So I did not take that one for granted. I loved it. We turn from this sort of, I'm her superior. I'm constantly trying to coach her and help her. I'm able to do it a little bit. She saves my life. We end up sort of saving each other and then become this like dynamic duo team as equals, which I'm just like, yes, more of this, please, more of this.
Yeah, it was so fun to watch, and yeah, I definitely think we need to have more new playing cops. And I don't understand why they don't make more because it's such an obvious. You
Yeah,
can do the
you
pace, you
think
can do the
so.
tension, so we need more of
Yeah,
those.
I think yeah, cops. So I get pigeonholed in sort of the cop soldier
Mm,
uh, space a lot, in not in the vertical space, but in the
mm.
vertical space, I've been a criminal quite a bit, or on the other side of the law, shall we say? Some of my mafia characters are, we're philanthropists. We're just, but we have a little bit of
I'm
money.
sure some of yours are trying to like clean up the act, aren't they? And
Yeah, I think so. At least that's the premise.
yeah.
I always end up with a gun in my hand, though.
And then like the final specific role I wanted to talk to you about was the one with Brooke, which is I know it's got different titles. Irresistible Love with My
Irresistible love with my
Brother-in-Law,
brother-in-law. Yeah, yeah.
which I know a lot of us loved because it feels slightly slower for vertical, which is nice
Mhm.
because it's more of a gentle relationship. I've talked to Brooke about this in her YouTube interviews, so she knows. Obviously, I think she has this phenomenal moment at the beginning where the whole story premise setup is that she is widowed, and then your character is the brother of her partner who's passed away. And there's this phenomenal scene she has at the beginning where she just captures grief and like everything's happening behind her, and she's just still sat on the hospital, which is amazing. So it starts. I mean, that is just like one of the best starts of vertical. You're instantly pulled in. But then what's great is obviously your character is quite suspicious, but it never goes full vertical. So you never go
It's
into some of the insults and the nastiness and that sort of, I always think, quite lazy writing. It's just, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to keep an eye on her rather than going to kidnap her or bankrupt her, whatever it is. And then there's this really beautiful sort of gentle love story. And then the whole thing of like, can you fall in love, when you've sort of got this other person and the relationship is no longer there. I presume again that when you looked at that script, you were like, there's more here to get my teeth into.
Yes, yeah. I immediately fell in love with it. Obviously, jumped at the opportunity to get to work with Brooke, because I think we play really well together, and for lack of a better term, that makes things so much easier on set as well. Because of how quickly we're moving. I'm like, yeah, this is like you don't have to. sort of walk us through some of this process. Like, we've got it. We've got it. We're here to work and play together. But yeah, I feel like in verticals so often, like, we end up finding love as this sort of storybook thing that is, it's a fantasy, and it becomes this idea of what love is pretty much all the time, right? The guy and the girl meet, they overcome obstacles, and they end up together, and it's perfect and beautiful. But in this one, I'm like, wow, we have to, this sinks way deeper. We find this love and connection together while I'm gonna raise like, she's pregnant with my brother's child, and that never changes. I kept waiting for the moment where they're like, oh no, she accidentally slept with you and it's your kid and it's all perfect and fine, we never got there, because the story ended up being like this really fun, juicy, grounded thing, and being like, all right, I need to find a way to take care of this person, fully knowing that for the rest of my life, I'm going to be raising my brother's child with this person, but also finding this different type of, this love and care, but it's deeper. It's not just this like surface level thing. And so I loved that story. I absolutely loved that story. And from the title, it's a very vertical title, right? But if you give it a chance and watch it, you'll be pleasantly surprised. It moves slow. It's very specific. The moments that we have together are very juicy. There's not as much said. A lot more is unsaid. And I loved that opportunity to get to play with Brooke and tell that story. Is really special to me.
And obviously, one of the things people really loved as well is that you speak some Italian in it. And
I do.
I know I should remember her name, but the wonderful actress who plays your
Sylvia
character's mother
Baldessani.
as well. Was that written in the Italian, or was that something that you kind of, because of the casting, you were like, we can put this in here?
Well, I always sprinkle a little bit in, if I can, with the characters that I get to play, who are Italian in the Mafia. Just because I took Italian, I spoke it a little bit. I'm not as fresh up on it as I was back in the day, but I can mess around with it a little bit. And I've performed one of the plays I did in New York. I only spoke Italian in it, and so like I can play in Italian. And they had several things that they wanted me to say in Italian. And I immediately was looking at it and I was like, I don't think this is right. Like, this isn't grammatically correct. So I walked right over to Sylvia and I was like, Sylvia, help me figure out what it is I'm really supposed to be saying here. And she did, because she can speak Italian fluently. She's off the boat Italian, right? And so she helped me sort of navigate grammatically where I was supposed to go. But then I just kind of took off, and people really seem to like it when I speak in Italian. So I try to sprinkle it in every chance I get.
So I have to ask, now you're coming up, as you said, your 2-year vertiversary. I mean, I don't know if that's what you call it.
Yeah, vertiversary, you've coined the term. There you go.
Yeah. No one's going to thank me for that. How would you say the scene's changed over the 2 years, and kind of where would you like to see it go? What are your hopes to kind of improve it and keep driving it forwards?
One of the things that I see has changed is we have completely truncated the production process. It really has become sort of like a battle against time. I remember that first year shooting, I think the least amount of days that I had on a project was 8, and I had upwards of 12, 11 on a couple. That was in 2023. And then all of a sudden in 2024, it felt like we had really truncated it. 6, 7 days were sort of regular, 8 was a luxury. And so I don't know I don't know the numbers side of everything, if like saving those days really helps with budgets and whatnot, but I do think it does hinder some of the storytelling, obviously, when you're so rushed through. One example I mean, in LAPD, Ashley and I get trapped in there's gas coming in. We're trapped in this garage, and we're supposed to like arrest this person. We can't find them. They escape. We've got to aim the gun and at the I think it's a keyhole or an alarm or something, and fire and get ourselves out, whatnot. It's this huge moment where we look at each other and we're worried this is about to be it. This is gonna be the last moment we have on Earth, and like there's so much that we haven't said to each other. There's this love here, and we haven't expressed it yet. And we shot that, I want to say, in 15 minutes was all we got on that scene. And that's like, maybe, I think we got 2 takes max. And then like they tried to do overs, and like it just was so quickly rushed, and was just a missed opportunity, just because as actors we need to be ready to rock, and just like it. But there was so much blocking and physicality that it was tough. It was really tough. And so those are the moments where I'm like, this could have been a really special moment. Part of, really integral part of the storytelling, and it kind of got washed over because we didn't have enough time. So I hope that budgets end up in a place where we are allotted that extra day or 2 days if we need, and that these are doing well enough that producers and production companies, apps feel comfortable giving us that amount of time. Also, I think that storyline wise, we are hopefully moving in the right direction when it comes to SA. Sexual assault is not, it's just not something that I think has a place in any storytelling right now, unless it's under very specific context. But I feel like it's just so prevalent, and because of this medium where you're swiping through, you may not see the beginning of a story. You may be popping on, it may be hitting your feed. You got to go back to the beginning. I just think that that's something that doesn't have a place in this medium, and I hope that we are moving away from that. And I find us actors, we're constantly advocating for it on set. Like, how do we tell this story in a way that like still looks the way that you wanted to, but is full of consent? Because I think consent is sexy. I think consent is way more interesting than these situations where lines are blurred. Especially in this medium, which is so visual. Like, I think it's really important to capture that. So
Quite interesting, because one of the scenes that was nominated in the fan awards that I did was, and obviously all the nominations came from fans, so it was all fans. I'm not going to sit and tell people what should be on there. And one of them was the scene in Virgin's Bucket List, where it's basically all about the male character talking to the female character about, are you sure you want to do this? And it's a big scene about consent. And then so obviously some people are like, why is it on the short list? Like, that's crazy that's been listed as a swoon-worthy scene of like, it shouldn't be that consent is sexy. But I was like, well, that's what people voted for. And hopefully by that being there, and the fact that every scene on there was really more romantic rather than, shirts off, hopefully shows that, okay, that might get a bit of attention, but actually that's what people want. That's what real romance is. So
I just think, it's asinine to think that you can't capture this level of tension with consent. I think we can do it. And I think, like, especially a lot of us actors in the vertical space, we've been doing this a lot. Like, there's a lot of us who are really talented, who are having a lot thrown at us, but can still like lock in and dial in and sort of give, for lack of a better term, give the people what they want, but still fill it with that moment of consent. Like, that adds to it, that bolsters it, and that's what people want to watch, and that's what we should be promoting. Like, hey, like, you can be this big bad, sexy guy, and you can, kick down doors and save your woman, and also make sure that she wants to do everything that she wants to do. So I just hope that we continue to move in that direction. I know as an actor, I have been able to draw very strong lines on set with like, hey, we need to find the consent in this situation. We need to find it here. Whether it's working with an intimacy coordinator, director, the producer, the clients, always finding those moments, because it's really important. And I think we need to keep driving that home.
My 12-year-old kind of nailed it. Obviously, she's not watched any. I wouldn't let her watch any, but she said verticals don't need to make the world better. That's not on them, but they need to not make it worse.
Yeah.
Which my 12-year-old is a wise soul. Let's not take it backwards. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? So
there's a huge responsibility to not do that with the way that the industry is moving. I don't think verticals are going away anytime soon. I think you're seeing a lot of interest from companies that maybe scoffed at them in the first place. And so there's a huge responsibility that we have, and I hope everybody realizes that. And it's exactly like your 12-year-old said. We don't have to always make it better, but we cannot make it worse. We cannot make it worse. Yeah.
I have to sort of switch because obviously one of the things that comes with verticals is social media attention.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
How is that?
It's wild. It's weird. I think I had 2,000 followers before I started doing verticals, and now I have close to 22,000. So I know where those 20,000 came from.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, it's been interesting. Aside from, and I do want to say, I think it probably is very different, garnering social media attention from a bunch of uh, uh, mostly women in the, I don't know, we'll say like 30 to 60 range. They're very different probably than a lot of the way that guys treat girls on social media. I think it's different arenas. But I've it's been very interesting. I've connected with a lot of people, most of whom are respectful.
Mm.
And yeah, it's some wild, fun conversations, and people talking to me about what they really enjoy about my performances, and the stories that they're really connected with, and things that I didn't even think would necessarily register or hit home for somebody, and they can't stop talking about it. The things that people are passionate about, again, we don't get to decide. And so it's our job to treat everything with that tender love and care. And now people reach out to me on social media and want to talk about it. I do my best to answer every single message that comes my way, even if it's just a like, even if it's just, and again, there's going to be a day where there's just, if it keeps trending in this direction, I'm not going to be able to do it. But I had about 6,000 people wish me a happy birthday, and I got to all of them. I got to all of them. Um, and
It's amazing, isn't it? That's like a
it is, it's
village,
ridiculous.
isn't it? Like a whole around the world wishing you happy birthday.
Yeah, it was wild. Yeah, and I tried to kind of treat my birthday pretty low key, but then Brooke made this really wonderfully adorable, loving video of me, and I reposted it, and that was the rest was history, and everybody knew. But yeah, the social media's been interesting. I never really thought of. I know that Instagram and whatnot is supposed to be
Mm.
treated like a business, treated like you're a brand, et cetera, et cetera. And I've just kind of been floating through the space, figuring out sort of where I fit in, and trying to share things with people that they want to see, and also post things professionally, and also like let them in a little bit, and hey, look, Brooke and I are doing this. So it's been an interesting thing to navigate, because you still want to have that barrier. There's work, and then there's your life, and what do you want people to have access to or not. And right now there's at least 20,000 people out there that are following my relationship with my partner, which is not something I necessarily ever thought
Mm.
would be something. So that's something that Brooke and I both talk about, and navigate as well. But I mean, it's all love, it's all exciting. And the people that end up being a little creepy, we just ignore. So,
That's what the block button's for. Block.
yep,
I did a
block
post about
off.
this, trying to keep you all safe. Just block, block.
Yeah,
I have to ask as well. Just say, well, as you say, I do social media for the day job as well. You have a very good grid because you're very good at the triple post, 3 posts from a headshot thing, which always tidies
yeah.
it up. So
I think I'm just
top
a
work.
little OCD, but I have to, like, for some reason I'm like, oh, how the grid looks is so like important to me, even though people are just seeing things on their feed. But if you go to my page, yeah, the grid is. I'm like, I want it to really be like symmetrical, have color coding. I don't know. It just kind of
Very
seems
smart.
fun.
Good grid. Um, Did you brought it up? I wasn't going to ask, but was there a decision with yourself and Brooke? Like, do we keep this private or do we take it public? Kind of, how do you navigate that? Because obviously, as you said, I mean, you've got a lot of followers, Brooke's got a lot of followers. That brings a lot of people into your personal
Into our
life who are then
circle. Yeah.
invested.
I won't lie. I think it kind of got out ahead of us, and then by then it was a little too late
Mm,
to really have the conversation about whether we. I mean, we ended up. Um, I want to say earlier last year, we ended up. So we would be posting about the fact that we were together and out doing fun things, and
mm,
we were out at this place together and whatnot. Still keeping it semi-private, just in general. You don't want to. I
mm,
don't. I'm not the kind of person that likes to blast my
mm,
relationship all over social media. Um, but I think at a certain point, after it probably was a little bit too late, I was like, my following is increasing a lot. People are asking about us and when are we working together again. And I was like, the cat was sort of out of the bag. But I
mm,
think that we have a good we communicate very well, and we have a sort of a good plan, good boundaries set up for what it
mm,
is that we're comfortable with everybody seeing and talking and engaging, with people, and then what it is that it's like, hey, we need to put the phone down. There's certain things we just need to experience together without capturing it and showing it to everybody else. So I think we're constantly navigating it. We're constantly having those conversations. But the cat sort of ended up out of the bag before we could sit down and have a real hardcore. Do we do this or not? So
I hope it's all right me sharing this, but it's my YouTube, so I can if I want.
Yes,
So I got together with my husband at work. He was a manager, but I had several managers. It was a really big retail shop.
All right.
But it was under wraps. We hadn't told anyone. And I think the only person I told was my direct supervisor at work, who I just remember we obviously got spotted in town holding hands. And I can remember this guy, Jake, with glee running down the floor of this shop going, "You've been spotted, everyone knows." Okay, fine. No.
That's adorable.
And it was just hilarious because he wasn't my direct line manager, so it's fine. So no one actually cared. But yes, it was. It was. A bit
So no, the idea of like trying to keep it under wraps and what.
Yeah,
I guess we've had that conversation too, where at least like with our work, it's 8 days on set, and then off you go to the next workplace, right? And so that's it's a little different, but I'm like, do we pitch ourselves together on projects? Do we want like, hey, this is sort of the package that you get when you work with both of us. This is how our shows have done together. I'm like, it's an interesting thing because it's like we're working together, but not always, but sometimes, and then so. But the good thing, I guess you and your husband, you work very well together. Brooke and I mean, that's a good sign, right? Like Brooke and I work very well together. So
I think it's mixing it up. I think we didn't want to work in the same shop for long term. Gotcha. It's better. We went separate ways, and now we've got slightly different careers, but it's all come back. He's slowly learning about verticals.
All right, well, get him on the bandwagon.
Because I tend to do this, and it all happens, and then I just explain to him as if he knows. And he's like, "What are you actually talking about?" So we had a long car journey somewhere, and I had spent 2 hours. He's like, "Can you just explain this to me?"
Good. Hey, we got to touch that demographic. We don't have that demographic of guys yet interested in the vertical.
Yeah, if you could do crime dramas, he would be in, I think. So I think crime. Yeah,
a detective role, like a sort of like True Detective. That's my dream role. People constantly asking me on social media, what's your dream role? And I'm like, I really want to play a detective, like long form storytelling detective, hunting down the bad guys. And there's some moral lines being blurred and complications that come along and romance and whatnot. But like that's my dream role, and I hope that eventually we get.
You have to promise to be world weary and have a complicated past.
Yes, of course.
You can't be a detective that.
Page 1, yeah. Yes, very complicated past. He's old. Yeah, no, that's listen. That's a dream role for me. So maybe I'll just have to write it. We'll see
projects coming up. Can you share? Is there anything you're excited about? You're like, yes.
People need to watch there are a couple that should be that are in the can and should be coming out pretty soon. I've got 2 projects that should be getting released fairly soon, and then I'm starting my next one. I won't talk about the next one yet, just because there's NDAs and all that stuff. But the 2 that are coming out, one is like a pseudo mafia sort of situation, romance, and then I'm not sure what app that one's going to be on. And then the one that I shot after is for Serial Plus with, that was directed by a director that I worked with in the Lifetime movie network space. So he's sort of breaking into, his name's Dylan Vox. He's sort of breaking into the vertical space as well. And I'm very excited for that one to come out because it's going to look different. I think it'll look incredible. Just seeing some of the shots, and like he's really talented, and just coming from a that artistic background of like having he's directed so many films, and finally breaking into the vertical space and like still making the day, still getting the shoot done, but also like, hey, we can increase the quality of how this stuff looks, and so I'm really excited about that one when that one comes out.
And are you seeing that happen more, that people are now coming into the space from, I guess, more mainstream
Not always. I think there's a few that have sort of made their way in. I think there still is a hesitance to bring in people that aren't as familiar with the format because they're so concerned about the speed at which it happens, right? And it
Mm.
still took us, it took us some time our first 3 days we were really rushed trying to get through the day, right? And then um, things sort of like leveled out and we figured it out. But like nobody's going to learn how to do this unless you give them the chance to do it. And so like I hope people take more chances on really talented directors coming in to give it a shot because they can do it. They can definitely do it. It's just an adjustment period. I mean, I got really lucky. I sort of started with verticals where I had more days, and then slowly the
Yeah.
days got shorter and shorter and shorter. But so I had that sort of adjustment period, and now I'm like, all right, 100 pages in 7 days, let's do
Mm.
it. I got it. It just takes time.
Um, did it? Um, um, in the vertical space, obviously you've worked with a lot of people.
Mhm.
Are there people on your list that are, oh, I would love to get in a vertical with them, work with them,
People who
already in the space?
people who are already in the space that I haven't
Yeah,
worked
and
with
you're
yet.
like, because I was talking to Kira Wisely, and she was like, her and Noah Fernley, it's like they've never actually been in
We've
something
never
together,
worked
and it's
together.
an obvious pairing. And I like, have never managed to make the schedule work. Is there anything like that? You're like, oh, I'd love to.
I mean, a lot of my friends that I have in the vertical space are people that I've ended up working with.
Yeah,
so so
yeah.
a lot of the people that I know, I'd love to actually. I mean, no, because Kira and I work together. She was the villain with Brooke and I.
Mm.
But I'd love to get to work with her. I think I'd like to. There's a couple of the guys that I'd like to work with in a different sort of context in stories where like it's not necessarily like bad guy, good guy, but like
Mm.
that the guys end up teaming up. Like I love working with Noah. I've worked with him twice now, and he and I have become good buds.
Mm.
And it's just a shame that most of the stuff that we get to do on when the camera's rolling isn't like
Mm.
it's not as like fun and complicated or buddy buddy. There's no like
Yeah, they don't do buddy
bros.
stuff, do there? There's not. You're
No,
right.
there's no
Very
like
rarely
none of
seen.
the guys have friends. None of the guys in verticals. Like the girl character always gets a best friend, and the guy character gets an assistant who works for him. And we
Paid
never
friend, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
paid friend. He never has a confidant, a buddy. So I'm hoping that we get some stories. Um, like I mean, yeah, I just was out with Noah and Jeff and Eric and all of them for my birthday surprise. My birthday surprise. They were at my birthday surprise, and I was like, "There's a hilarious picture of all of us guys and Kahlo's there and Aland and I'm like, why don't we make a vertical about these dudes right here? All these guys getting into trouble. Where's the Ocean's 11 version of a vertical, you know? Because I think it could do really well. We could still toss the romance in there. We can get the tropes in there. But I guess it's not necessarily like people that because I know there's a lot of people that I haven't worked with who I think are really talented.
Mm.
But it's more so I'm like I want to work with these people in a different capacity other than like the normal stereotype. So I'd love to see if we could manage that Ocean's 11 vertical or something like
So
that.
good.
Wouldn't that be
Right,
great?
that needs to happen. Can we make that happen? Um,
Yeah.
so this is about characters. Of all the characters you've played, which one would you most like be happy to go out for a drink with?
Oh, happy to go out for a drink with. Like all these mafia bosses are so like reserved and depressed. So I don't know that they'd be I don't know that they'd be that cool or that fun. Um Honestly, I think Theodore Kingsley uh would be he'd be an all right time. Like he's a little troubled past and like figuring things out. Um but like still like open and sort of engaged in the world in not completely reserved
Mm.
way. And Theodore Kingsley is from Fated to My Forbidden Vampire with Brooke. But that was fun. I mean, because I got to be this vampire who's like still troubled past, still like complicated things, like figuring things out. But at least like goes to parties and like says hi to people and has a good time. And like there's more of like an open outward leadership quality as opposed to like the silent scary
Yeah,
mafia
you're right.
boss.
They're
Yeah.
normally quite depressed, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm like,
Um,
we just stare at each other and drink bourbon, they're not as excited
awkward
to go
social
out.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I have to ask as well. So this again, it's not about the actor, but it's the character. So I know
Mhm.
what's the biggest villain or villainess that you've been up against in a vertical? What's the one that you're like that was the most unhinged?
That I've been up against.
Hmm. So not that
Um,
you've played, but that you've been up against.
yeah, I'm gonna blank on the name of the character, but in my mafia boss's secret maid,
Mm.
I think that's that one. The villain is the woman who I was engaged to, um, sort of secretly, but then broke it off. Wasn't that interested, was just trying to
Mm.
please our parents. And she ends up shooting up my wedding, and even she even shoots me too at the end. And I'm gonna blank on the character's name though. That's the thing. But she's persistent. She sticks around. I shut her down constantly. She's trying to constantly worm her way back in. And then she shows up and completely shoots up my wedding. And I'd say, yeah, she was the most formidable because even at the end when I get her, she still got me. And it's pretty unclear whether I survive that situation or not. If you really
I'm desperately trying to look
dial
it
in.
up now, and I can't find it on IMDb. What was the? Do you remember who the actress was?
Oh, that had Casey Schreier in it was the other lead. Um,
Oh, is it? No,
Let
it's not
me
that one.
pull it up here. Since we can edit, I'll find it for you.
It's like, there's so many, Nick. You've been in so
I
many.
know there's a absolutely ludicrous amount.
Okay.
Um,
This is this is the question, which it's a silly question, but like, is it in your contract about you have to have those shirt buttons undone?
the buttons.
Like, why is it always? And it's always three. It's never two or
It's
one
really.
or a tie.
I'll
Why?
be on. I'll
Where
be
does it
honest.
come from?
It's the fit of the shirt. So a lot of the shirts that I wear are mine.
Okay.
And they in verticals they constantly want ties on you, and I don't like ties. I'm not a big necktie fan, and so it's sort of like balancing especially when I'm playing the mafia guy, because most of the time I'm doing it's because I'm like playing the mafia boss, like really relaxed, showing the chest, whatnot. But like one does like this does never felt like enough, so I always undo that last one. Just to like give him a little something. The sound guy hates it because he has to mic me up like really low and like tucked in away. But it just sort of became my thing. I don't know, and I'm glad you noticed. But yeah, it became my thing, just having this like string of unbuttoned shirts. Um, Became my style. If you're not
Because I
no
worry.
necktie,
I'm like, he needs a scarf. What if it's cold? You'll get pneumonia. It's like,
I know, right? But we mafia bosses, we don't feel cold. Our pride keeps us warm. We
it's a
we're
very good
fine.
answer.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So I have to ask you, these are quick questions now at the end, mainly supplied by my family, but honest, not bad. Okay, we wanted fast. Obviously, people who follow you on social media know you're a big Dungeons and Dragons fan. Is that true?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yes.
it is true. Oh
The
yeah,
movie, yes or no? Should people see it?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I didn't have very high expectations for it, and so I had a really good time. And there's enough in there for people that are really fans of the game, and enough
Mm.
in there for people that are just enjoying a movie. So I liked it. I'd call it it's a good airplane movie. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Maybe
that's
don't
a
watch.
really that actually makes total sense. People will
You
know what
know,
you mean.
maybe you're not like, hey, family, we're all sitting down tonight. We're watching the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Mm.
But if you're sitting down and you've got some time and
Mm.
you want a nice, easy, fun watch, it's cute and clever. So yeah.
Okay, good answer. Right, CD or vinyl?
Oh gosh, I think at this stage in my life I would say vinyl, but I don't have a turntable. But I don't have any CDs anymore.
Next birthday, get
Next
Nick.
birthday, yeah, turntable.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no CDs anymore, so I'd say vinyl. Yeah.
Okay. Friends or Schitt's Creek?
Schitt's Creek. I was not a Friends kid. I love Schitt's Creek. Yeah, just absolutely revere that show.
Answer. Favorite takeaway?
I like Mexican food.
Okay.
Brooke likes Thai food. It's a
Well,
standoff most nights.
yeah, I was thinking who normally wins out.
It's a standoff most nights, but we found some compromise.
We slightly touched on this earlier. Favorite James Bond?
Oh gosh, it's so tough because I so appreciate the Daniel Craig Bonds. Just for trying to be different and uh, grounded in a different way. This is a really tough question because I'm going to tell you things I like about Pierce Brosnan, Roger Moore, and Sean Connery. I'll say Sean Connery just for the classic Bond, but there are things I really appreciate about the Pierce Brosnan Bonds as well, and Roger Moore deserves his flowers. We'll say Sean Connery. Sean Connery.
Okay, you've committed like that. Right, you can tell I have teenagers now. Who is the best member of One Direction?
I couldn't name a One Direction person. Isn't yeah, they were after my time, I guess I'll say. Isn't Harry Styles
Yeah,
the
that will pass. Well done.
I'll say Harry Styles.
This is from the other one. Favorite Taylor Swift song?
Love Story.
Excellent. We'll bring the
OG.
Swifties in with that one. So I'm
Yeah,
thinking
Love
this
Story.
through. How do I widen our reach? Bring the Swifties in.
Yeah.
Right. These are the two more left field questions that made it. Honestly, this is what they gave me. Would you rather go bald or never cut your hair again?
Never cut my hair.
Okay.
Just to see what happens. I've never really let it grow like super long, so I'm kind of intrigued what it would look like. I think it would take a while, but yeah.
Okay. From my husband, have you ever seen a ghost?
I have not seen a ghost. No. Felt their presence, maybe, but I've not seen one.
Okay. And then the final question, what 3 things will you take to the desert island? And you're not just allowed to say Brooke.
All right.
We're assuming she's on the desert island with you, so let's just assume.
Okay, she's on the. Okay, got it.
I won't make you go without, but yeah.
Well, can I bring the cats as well? Is that so? Brooke
Okay,
and
yeah.
the cat.
Okay, so practical things that aren't alive. What 3
All right,
unalive objects
3?
would you take?
All right, we'll take my pocket knife just for we're gonna need it for a lot of stuff. I got a pretty good one. We will take. This is tough. We will take. We're going to take a baseball, just so we don't forget. We'll take a baseball. We'll play catch with it. It'll be fine. It'll entertain the cats. And yeah, I'll be able to.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah, multi-purpose.
Yeah.
I'll bring that. And then just to make things easier, we'll bring a frying pan. We can boil water in it if it's hot enough. We can boil water in it. You can cook it in the sun. If you find other stuff you want to cook. Brooke's a great cook. She does wonders with the pan. Yeah. We'll bring a frying pan.
Excellent.
Frying pan, baseball, and pocket knife.
I love it. Thank you so much. You've been an absolute superstar because I've asked so many questions. And
it's great. Thank you for giving us this. Truly, Jen. Like I never in a million years when I first started doing verticals did I think that this was going to be that I was going to be sitting down with you doing an interview. Like just trying to sort of tell people who I am, and it was never in my wildest dreams. And I hope that everybody can be as passionate as you are about these kinds of things. I think it's just there's so much negativity in the world. There's so much we are reminded every day of how awful things are. And if only people were as passionate about things that brought people joy like you are with this, it just is really touching. And I can't thank you enough for creating this platform for us. This is great.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.